Good Monday morning, everyone. Jim Cramer is here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange to analyze today's stock market. Jim, we're expecting another announcement on tariffs.
Right. I mean, talking about 10%, not 25. We don't know. These numbers are always elusive, but I will tell you that when we put tariffs on them, I think there's immediate impact. And I'm there judging by the fact that the Shanghai index is down at November 2014 lows. If you look about 2014, that's when the big spurt came. So anyone who bought at a higher level, it's kind of like buying during the dot-com period. So yeah, that's a reflection of, I think, how much China's being hurt. Obviously, our market is not like that. So there are very few companies that I know right now who feel they're in the crosshairs once the retaliation starts. Obviously, Apple's being one of them.
And so many CEOs have talked to you about the ability for them to move production outside of China.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're not making complex computer equipment, then you pick China, but you also multiple source. I'm not saying everybody was ready for this. I'm saying that ever since the president came in, I think, remember, during the campaign in November of 2016, actually all of 2016, you heard about endless attacks on China, that he was going to be very tough on China. And that was a clarion call to get started moving out. So it's not like companies are caught flat-footed at all.
All right, meanwhile, Jim, there are reports that Coca Cola may be interested in taking a stake in Aurora Cannabis.
Yeah, I was at the Green Market Report conference, which is Deb Borchardt, old friend of TheStreet. Remarkable conference. And the funded capacity of Aurora is very big, second to Canopy. Coke, we don't know whether they're really involved, but they would be remiss if they didn't talk more about CBD than THC, more about indica, which is the one that is, let's say, more medically oriented, at least for now. But at the Green Market Report, there was a lot of talk about both CBD, which is legal in this country if it's come from hemp, and not if it comes from marijuana, and THC, which is the kicker, which is what a lot of people feel gets them high. It does get them high. CBD, not necessarily. CBD, very good pain reliever. So THC is much more likely to be included. I like to consider THC as alcohol. Okay, so in other words, if you have 10% THC, that's kind of like wine. If you have 20%, then you start getting higher in proof to say like 90. If you get 30% THC, I consider that like wild turkey. So I think that you got to stay close to what Coca-Cola want. But remember, October 17th is legalization day in Canada. Do not chase these stocks. Again, Deb's incredible conference made it very clear that you will not be drinking or eating edibles all over the place once Canada goes legal, because there's not a lot of capacity. The funding capacity is the metric that people are using, and I think that when you look at what Aurora has, they've got a big a panoply of every different kind of drink and food, and they have the option to buy a big stake in the company that I talked about when I interviewed, which is the Dutchman, which is this is the Green Organic Dutchman, TGOD, and that's all natural and organic. So there's so much positioning going on in this market ever since Rob Sands took a big stake in Canopy. But after all of the activity, as we learned at Borchardt's Green Market Report conference, it's really only $30 billion in invested capital versus Brian Athide, who was the CEO I interviewed, said it's a half a trillion dollar opportunity. So obviously, if you look at it like that, it's still a great land grab.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You mentioned the Dutchman. I mean, they want to be the Whole Foods of cannabis.
Yeah, and Brian Athide, I mean, this is why you know that it's real. And a lot of people feel it's a flake because it's limited to Colorado and Oregon as being the big winner so far. Oregon, by the way, the price has fallen through the floor. A lot of companies are worried about the vertical integration. Aurora is vertically integrated. But the reason why they're worried, obviously, is because if you have a crop shortage, something goes wrong, you're going to be caught in the spot market. There will be a spot market. Athide, who is the CEO of the Dutchman, is 25-year Procter & Gamble veteran. And what does that tell you? Well, it tells you about that this stuff is much more mainstream than you may realize.
Jim, today's stock of the day for real money is Tyson Foods. CEO Tom Hayes is stepping down.
Yeah, you know, I like Hayes. I don't know what the story is. I think Hayes is. Look, Tyson's not done well lately, but there's a lot of commodity pressure. You look at Hormel, which hit a 52-week high. A lot of commodity pressure there too. But Hormel's got many levers to move, many more than Tyson. Tyson's done some remarkable things, and I hate to see him go. It's for personal reasons, but this is personal reasons. I just hope it's okay. But I do think that the food group, most of the activity in the food group today is because Morgan Stanley has brought out coverage with a lot of holds and then an outright sell of Kraft Heinz. That does not bode well for Kraft Heinz, so be careful there.
And I urge everyone to check out Tyson's coverage on Real Money, the company telling Real Money that there will be no change in corporate direction. So.
Right, and that's important, but I mean, obviously it's a protein play, and Tyson is positioned. Millennials have a very affinity for protein. Now, when I say that, I mean, it's obviously a broad generalization, but the numbers have borne it out.
Jim, you have Joe Papa on Mad Money tonight.
Yeah, this is important because Bausch, remember, this is the old Valiant. I'm glad they got rid of that name. Bausch has fixed near term its balance sheet. Bausch is trying to grow the company now. I think that there is tremendous opportunity there for Joe Papa. There was a conference not that long ago where he was peppered with, "Are you going to sell the company?" Obviously, he's cleared up a big lawsuit with Teva, and I think there's no plans to sell it whatsoever. If you're buying it for a possible sale, I think that's a big mistake.
Okay, that's tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern
on
I
also
CNBC.
Camping World, which people might know from Marcus Lemonis from The Prophet. Very nice man who's going to talk about why his strategy, which is uniquely focused on loyalty, on the Gander acquisition, is going to prove to be a good one. So let's stay focused on that.
All right, Jim, we'll be watching that. And meanwhile, Jim and I are going to continue talking about stocks. Please join us on our ActionAlertsPlus.com video.